Hey everyone, how's it going? We're talking weight pocket insulation. You're probably sick of me talking about it, but it's going to be on the books here for a while because of the winter, the impending winter coming up, and I don't want to lose a whole ton of heat out there. I'm trying to reduce my energy bill by not running these as much. With the pandemic, I was unable to get the boiler and everything else I need to get the radiators in place. So that's not going to happen this year. Probably a project for next year. Anyway, so best way I can do this is just invest in insulation. Really, this insulation procedure only cost me maybe $30, and that'll do all 4 of these pockets plus all the pockets in the office. Alright, so let's talk about the insulation. So this is done really well for me in these pockets and allows me to retain the actual weights themselves, which I'd prefer to do. And that helps with this insulation. It's a 1-inch insulation. It has a metal or a metal film backing on it that allows the heat to radiate back out. It doesn't let it penetrate in so much. So that's one thing that reduces the heat. But also what I was doing was I caulked the bottom and all the outside edges to stop that air gap in there. Now it's important to note too, when you're doing that, how your window's constructed. So right there's the channel for the stained glass window. The one next to it's the stop bead, and that's actually nailed onto the frame. So there's another air gap right there that air tends to get through. So I had to caulk that a little bit too, and you can't see it because the foam covers it. So all that's done, I then cut the pieces of foam, metal side out. It was 3 1/4 inches. It barely fit, and it was tough getting it up past those smaller, or those pulleys in the back. You can't see them right now, but the pulleys in the back, because it's exactly 1 inch from the pulley to the trim on the outside, exactly 1 inch. That's how this board fit, because it's a 1-inch board, or 1-inch foam board. I'm sorry. That's how that fit. So I was able to shove it all the way upward past that foam, up into the top there. You know, the spray foam, that's what that is. It's in pieces because getting it past those pulleys, I had to use shorter pieces to be able to muscle it past those pulleys. They weren't hitting, but it was really tight. And it just made it easier to have a shorter piece without it breaking all the time. And then I taped it with the aluminum tape. And I just used small pieces, just what I had. I didn't have a piece that was long enough for this, because when I brought it home from the home center, all I had is a card. I had to cut it down. And then I had it go all the way down at the bottom, in the bottom part of the weight pocket. I then used scrap to put this piece in and put aluminum tape on it to hold it in place. And then I spray foamed this with the big gap spray foam. And then I did that same thing to the bottom, because there's no sense in having all this room in the bottom for something. There's no sense, because even if a weight fell down, you could still access the weight, because here's the pocket right here. Still plenty of room to pull the weight out if you had to. So with that, got all that done, got everything taped for the back part here, and I got the spray foam in. Next, I figured out that we were still experiencing temps in the weight pocket from even with the front covers on. Those are the covers in the front. It has to go in two pieces because one goes below there and the other one goes up above there. But the issue is we're still getting pretty good temps in here. We're still getting, it'd be 73 or 74 in here, and it would still be 77, 78 on the outside wood, you know, the trim wood on the inside here. And I figured out what it is the rear pulleys were drafting in air that was seeping between the stop gap, or the stop on the outside, the window, and then going into the pocket through the pulley. And it was doing it on both sides. So that air was filtering in like this, and then coming back out through the pockets on either side through these pulleys that you can see. So that came up with the idea of doing what I did here. So basically what it is, I'm not going to pull this apart. These are all cut down to 3 inches, so I can give me clearance for the 1-inch foam board on the outside, so it's like tight against it. And these two pieces here are separate, that go between the weight pulleys themselves. And then I caulk them in just on 2 sides to make sure they stick. So it'd be this side and that side on the wood side. So the top foam and the wood side, just to make sure that they'd stick. Because if I didn't have those up there, they were falling out, having such a pain in the butt time getting it in there. Then this piece, and this is the awesomeness of the way they did this. They did everything in 1-inch increments. So even with 2 weights in here, I know they barely touch, but it's basically from the middle of the cord over. It's basically 1/2 inch on either side. So the weight would fall in the middle, and then you'd have 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch there. And that's how they kind of measured things out. So, or 1 inch. So I had 1 inch on the side because there's a little gap. Anyway, in the middle I had 1 inch. So I could take the foam block, put it in here between the ropes, and shove it up there. And I made these 2 pieces in just a way that this would be press fit in here, and I wouldn't have to caulk it. I just shove it up there, it's really tight, it's not going to fall out. Then I added these pieces to go underneath those other 2 pieces behind the pulleys, and these go all the way out to the foam board on the outside, and they're basically siliconed into the wood from here to keep them in place, because if there wasn't anything there, they'd just fall out. And then I said, well, it's fine because there's nothing, these ropes really, they do move in there pretty easily. They're not rubbing too bad, and there's no drag on it. In fact, it really quiets down the operation of the pulleys. And over time, I'm sure they'll wear in a little bit, but that's expected. I don't expect them to just stay like this all the time. And it's kind of an experiment too. But anyway, I have about a 3/16 to 1/4 inch gap between the 2 here. I said, well, air can still come out of the pulley, we'll pretend this is the back one, and come down following the rope. And if there's nothing there, like some of these don't have anything there, then it'll just draft in there that much. It's not that much, but it'll still have air transfer. Not as much as it was before. And then I added these wedges of scrap I had, just to go in there and block some of the air, so it's not such a problem. And really, pocket air is fine, but this also blocks the air that comes out of the pulleys at the top. Because this one's used, this one wouldn't be used because of the big plate glass window. You'd have to put giant weights in here to get this thing to lift. But if you see here, I mean, it comes down pretty easily. It doesn't make a whole lot of noise. And you can see the weights in there on both sides. And this window, the stained glass window, was never movable. I actually made it movable because there's no way to adequately get it to stay up in its place. In fact, we've had problems with that in the past. I just happen to have a 7-pound weight. That's what I needed. Anyway, so that's cool. And it actually, with the covers on, with these covers on, everything clears in there really nicely. You don't hear weights clanging around. You don't hear anything. It's awesome. It really quiets things down. Even outside, you used to be able to hear the wind noise, even though we know there was a hole at the bottom of the weight pocket, but you would used to be able to hear the wind noise just from the outside on really windy days, and you don't hear it now because it's all deadened. Now, aerogel makes this tape. It's a heat blocking tape. It wouldn't do much good in the winter other than to keep the heat in the pocket, but it would keep the heat out. And if you've ever seen where basically, if you pay attention to where the sun is in your house and how it hits your house, you'll notice that it hits this outside edge and heats things up. And it does it on that one too. And the paint generally is worse on the places where it hits with the heat all the time, just from exposure. So, like, you come over here, I know I've stripped it out, but that one, as crusty as that looks, I'm still going to clean it. This one just came off. I just barely touched it with the putty knife and it came off. So that's definitely a plus. I mean, when you're trying to strip it, it's also a lot harder on the paint when you gotta paint it and have the sun hit it and everything else. But back to it. I was thinking if I could take some of that tape and line it on the inside here where the sun hits it all the time, that would help reflect the heat back out. And in fact, I could even put it on both sides and reflect the heat back out. Even in the winter, it would be able to reflect some of this heat back out into the room versus going to the pocket. The goal here, though, is to make the cover wood, the trim wood, the same temperature of the room. Not colder, not hotter, just the same temperature of the room. That's basically, in a nutshell, what I had to do to get this done. When I did this and I had the insulation on and I had the cover on, the wood was the same temperature of the room no matter what the temperature outside was. In fact, when I did the inside panel, I made sure the aluminum side, the metal side, was facing out. So this would actually face out like this into the room. Let's see here, where's my end? Or no, this one I was testing out. So this one I had this way and put it back into the heat back into the weight pocket. But it worked well. It really did. I think when I'm done testing, I'll tape the joint, and this will create a thermal break here by taping it. I also tape the joints because this has to go into two pieces because I can't flex the foam enough to push it down the 2 inches or so it goes down behind the wood, and the 2 inches or so it goes up here. But it's a real tight fit. The cool thing is this is a DIY project. This isn't something you need any skill saw or anything else for it. It's just, it takes time, and it takes a caulking gun and a knife. You can get a really nice razor knife, like what I have, and it cuts it just nice. And all you have to do is score it a little bit, so get it through blade, because the blade only sticks out, half an inch. cut it with that, and then you can snap the foam and then cut the back where it is, so it'll cut it off that way. And it's pretty cool. It works really well. And this is, like I said, all DIY stuff. This is stuff you can do as long as you can get the cover off. The cover was a challenge to get off because they used really strong nails, and they used really long nails. And they also nailed it along the bottom and the top. So what I started doing is I'd use a putty knife to get in there. You have to take the stops off, and take the putty knife in the crack and kind of jar it like this, trying to get it out just a little bit. And then I'd be able to take some puller or some I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, I was able to stick better tools in there to kind of open it up more and get it to a point where I could cut the nails. When I was able to cut the nails, I was able to pull the nail through the wood, the trim wood, and pull the nail out of the window frame, so I can re-drill those nails into this piece of wood, and I don't have separate nail holes for another set of nails or screws. I'm going to use finished screws. But anyway, it's working out really well. I'm kind of surprised at how well it works. Both these pockets do really well. In fact, I'll show you the other pocket here. See? It's there. They do really well. And I think it's not going to be as drafty this winter. This will be really nice. It's able to stay cooler in here too really easily. In fact, we noticed from the dining or the office has a bay window, so it has 3 windows there, and none of those are done yet. And they draft like no one's business, and they all need painted and everything else. That'll get done. But when you walked in here, there was probably a 5 to 7 degree difference just between the 2 rooms. And walking in here, it was insane. I never felt that before after I got these done. Anyway, this video is long enough. We're at 17 minutes, and I've just been yammering on about insulation and things like that on a pocket. But I wanted to make sure that I covered everything on it and that it was easy enough for people to do. But yeah, you're just layering insulation. That's all you're doing. Anyway, rate, comment, subscribe, and appreciate your support.